Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Career Evangelist Podcast. We have another awesome guest today. From launching a profitable business during the Great Recession to scaling a tech company from $1 million to over $20 million today. Today's guest knows how to turn chaos into predictable revenue. He's built demand engines, led national B2B partnership with Volkswagen, and is helped raise 160 million plus. So if you want to stop fighting and start building real career momentum, this episode is for you. And with that, I welcome our guest. Welcome to the show, Javier.
Thank you, Bola. I really appreciate it. I'm really excited about just kind of sharing some stories and helping your audience as well too to improve their career and learn from both of us.
Awesome. No, it's nice to have you, and I'm delighted that my listeners they are going to be hearing your story today. Now, to start with, I just read that you during the Great Recession, when fear was all over the country, you
Yeah.
built your business. Tell us about that. How did that happen?
I didn't choose to build my business at that time frame. It chose me. It chose me. So I kind of had my back against the wall. It was a small and medium sized business. It was a martial arts and personal training studio. If everyone recalls around that time frame, a lot of home foreclosures were taking place, which was primarily my audience. And basically, what happened is that I'd signed a lease with a personal guarantee. So for those folks that understand that, is that if you go under and you can't pay your bills, you're guaranteeing that you're going to pay that for the foreseeable future until it's all paid off. And so I put a bet on myself. So this was all done before the recession was even, official. I had a storefront location next to a shopping center, like grocery store and whatnot. And then we opened in August, and then in September of 2008, that's when it was official that we were in a recession, and I had to get really dialed in when it came to my marketing and my sales. So I had a sales background, very really great at my sales process. I was actually working a full time job in conjunction to running my business, so I was working 80 hours a week. Wasn't really something that I wanted to be doing, but it was a dream that I was fulfilling. So I was going after what was, I believe, was part of my journey that I needed to do. And so I got really good at the sales process, but then I needed to kind of start building that pipeline to get folks into my door. And so I started learning how to become better at marketing and just kind of really understanding how to do all that correctly. So ran that company for about 10 years and ended up actually having a successful exit in 2018. Not something that a lot of small businesses can actually do, to actually have a successful exit where you have a buyer that comes in. And so that was kind of the beginning of where my career really, in my opinion, started.
Oh, that's good. It's good to hear that story. And you've combined two major, I'll call them career areas. You've talked about sales and you talked about marketing. I'd like
Yeah.
us to break it down. You said you got better in sales, you also improved your marketing skills. Uh, are you saying maybe for entrepreneurs that want to grow their business,
Mhm.
are you saying marketing and sales are those essential for them?
I think so. I really believe that they're both almost one and the same. And so this is kind of what I mean is that marketing is selling, but you're selling with words. You're selling with emotions, if you will, but without having a physical person kind of bring you into that story. Sales is selling with your words. It's someone telling and learning about the pain points and then bringing emotions there. If you're able to really join those two things and understand how they truly do overlap and they complement each other, then you really have a strong system that allows you to create more of that predictable pipeline that I like to talk about. We can talk about a little bit later, but it's important to know that it's not just one or the other. They don't operate in silos. A lot of companies really think that way. A lot of entrepreneurs think like, well, I got to get better at sales. I got to get better at marketing. You got to get better at knowing what your customer wants and then learning how to not expose, but how to pull those pain points out and then offer them exactly what they're looking for. When you do that, then all of a sudden your sales and marketing is one.
Okay. So you've been saying get better, and I know I want people to get better. We all want to get better. So how did you get better in sales and marketing? For most people, they may think, oh, go back to school, but I don't know what you did. Can you share that with us?
Yeah, it's honestly it's getting as many at bats, getting as many opportunities, and so you're going to have a lot of conversations during your sales process. You're like, oh man, that didn't go well, and then you've got to be just very self aware. You can't go into a sales conversation with prospects of saying, look, they didn't buy because it's their problem. It's this, that, the other. You've got to be self aware of knowing, like, okay, I did this piece. Clearly, it wasn't something that was resonating with them. And so I got to think about, do I need to attract a different audience, or do I need to get better at my sales process to really kind of pull a pain point? So it's really being really self-aware on that piece, on the sales side. And you get a lot of feedback, which is great. And so the more times that you have opportunities to talk to people and just, t- just sell your story, or sell your product or service that you have. In my case, it was martial arts lessons. The more you get better at like kind of bridging stories into your sales process, the easier it is to actually sell. And you're no longer selling; you're just kind of guiding somebody. So when you start kind of taking a step back, and you don't see yourself as a person that's selling something, you're just seeing yourself as a human being, just guiding and giving advice and saying, hey, this is what I think is best for you and your family. Then that process becomes easier and easier. So it's the at bats, and then it's also being that guide for those individuals that you're talking to.
Oh, that's so good. Now, I heard you say sell your story. And of course, you also talk about the pain points from
Mhm.
customer standpoint. So
Yep.
how can we extract those pain points? Because I really believe that if you talk to those pain points, if you can effectively address those pain points, then the customer will be willing to buy your product. So well, are there some ideas, some insights into knowing those pain points?
So what I've learned in my journey in this whole process is really understanding how customers react when you bring things up. So what I mean by this is that you might bring something up and there's no reaction. There's going to be an emotional, like their face may not say something, their voice might be different, there's no reaction. Other times you bring something up and you're like, yeah, that's exactly what I'm feeling. Oh, interesting. And then you want to start peeling the onion. You want to start kind of unveiling more things from there. And what I kind of tell people is that you almost want to ask questions as though you're not smart. It's not that you're not smart, but what you're doing is you just keep asking, because they're going to probably rephrase their question or their answer in a way that finally they're like, actually, this is what my pain is. And you'll realize that once you get to those questions, you bring those questions up sooner. And so the sooner you bring those questions up, those pain points, that becomes the triggers. And so I'm not going to say it's going to shorten the sales cycle, but it really changes on how you communicate with your audience. And then you can take that information and you can start using it in marketing as well too, where you use it in words, you use it on your website, you use it on your emails, you use it on your LinkedIn posts. But you're using these things because you understand that these are the pains that people are going through. And so it's really, it sounds like you're manipulating, but you want to agitate those pains, because no one buys if there's no kind of like feeling of like, oh, I can't believe this is going through. I'm experiencing this. People buy by emotions, and so you're trying to bring those emotions out.
Okay, that's so good. Now, you are a marketing guru, I'll say that. And go-to market is very important. So, are there some go-to market strategy or maybe framework that you want to share with my listeners?
Yeah. So, going back to what I was kind of saying is, when you're building out a go to market strategy, part of that is really knowing your audience. And it's taking the time to interviewing happy customers. It's taking the time to mapping out what that customer journey looks like. It's taking the time to finding where there are leaky holes in your customer journey. You're like, well, whenever someone becomes a lead here, then all of a sudden it drops off here. What you want to do is you don't want to show up saying like, well, everything's working fine, because you could always improve something.
Mhm.
And so when you're building out this go-to-market strategy, it's from a holistic view. You're looking at it from almost a 30,000 point view, and you're trying to remove yourself from that bias, if you will. Okay. Sometimes you need to bring somebody that's outside of this. Like that's why a fractional might be a great opportunity here, because they have no bias behind it. They're just going to look at the data. They're going to look at certain pieces. And so that's where I would start. And then from there, you want to make sure that before you build out a go-to-market strategy, you're tracking some sort of data that's going to lean you towards the direction to go. And that's where I believe a lot of entrepreneurs miss it, is that they go on vibes, they go on like feelings and gut. I'm not saying those aren't important. Those are very critical when you're running a business. But at the end of the day, you can't build a great go-to-market strategy based on how you feel, you
Yeah.
know? And so you need to be basing it on solid data. And that allows you to make good decisions. Now, it could be where it's only 60 or 70% of the information, but it's enough to where it's pushing you to the direction where to go versus, well, I feel like this is what I should be doing. Very different approach.
That's a good strategy. That's what I'm hearing. And data, everything has to be data driven. Now,
Yep.
you are the founder of Boulder Media. Can you tell us more about what you do in your company today?
Yeah. So I'm a fractional CMO. So I like to work with founder led or CEO led startup companies or scale up companies that are looking to really start aligning their sales and marketing. I work with B2B tech or B2B companies that are just, they don't have any kind of predictability. They've got product market fit, like they've got some sales, they've got some wins, but it's not something that they can't really duplicate all the time. And then maybe they have a little bit of momentum in some areas, but they don't know how to scale it correctly, how to basically add more fuel to the fire on a certain go to market that they've created. And so what they're trying to do is they're trying to create more predictability there. Where I come in is I create the foundation. My goal is to build the foundation so that we have an engine that is running continuously where we can depend on it. And I did this even at my first company, where I started my own company. Like we were generating 30 leads a month. Then we would basically get 15 of those leads to get on a phone call. And then of those 15, 12 of them would show up or would get on a call and have an appointment with me. And then of those 12, 10 of them would close. That's a system that I can depend on. That allowed me to sell my business in 2018. It's the same thing that I create, but more at scale at larger companies. So companies that are like between 1 million and 15 million is kind of where my sweet spot is. And that's exactly how I help companies out is build those pieces. So instead of just saying we just need emails, we just need SEO, we don't look at it from a tactical standpoint. We look at it from a strategic standpoint, and then we work on the execution piece.
Okay, so you talked about predictability, and I'm curious about that because I completely get it. If you have that predictable pipeline, at least
Mm-hmm.
that will show you how your business is growing, and it can, give you some confidence
Correct.
navigating the future. So, how exactly do you build this predictable system?
So the easiest way of doing this is that you've got signals or you've got triggers that you know that there's successes. So let's say that you're $1 million company and you've got 3 products that you're selling or services, whatever it is. And product A or service A is kind of like your cash cow almost. Like you can have the worst salesperson and it just sells itself.
Mhm.
That's good. And so not that you have a bad salesperson, that's not good. We need to make sure we fix that. But we look at that piece and we say, okay, why is this working so well? Why is this resonating? Like, are we saying certain things? What's the audience that's coming in? Like, what is their demographic? What is, their industry? What are their titles? Like, you've got to find these signals and you got to start understanding that. Once you understand that piece, you don't focus on the other ones. The reason I say this is that you build this one go to market, this one vertical to where exactly it's going to be like, hey, if I do paid advertising, if I spend $1, I'm getting $8 back every single time. Great. Now that doesn't happen just out of the ordinary, out of the blue. It happens by finding the signals that is resonating with that audience and then learning how to put that into the marketplace. So then maybe it's running some organic social, maybe it's some, email marketing, and you're seeing what is triggering those things. You're like, okay, anytime we do these, this is going to work. Now let's test maybe running some ads. We're going to do a small budget. We're going to try Meta because this is where this audience typically hangs out. We're going to run ads here. This is kind of our approach, and we're going to see what happens. And then you start kind of measuring all of this. And again, it goes back to making sure you have metrics to keep you in line with that. And that's kind of how you create that predictability. It seems as though it's like, well, Javier, you're just experimenting. It's not just experimentation. It's leaning into what is working right now.
So how do you maybe refine your strategy depending on, and I'm thinking whether you are dealing with a product company or a service-oriented company versus maybe you based on industry, whether it's hospitality, real estate, or any finance shared services company, for example. Can you talk us through that?
Yeah. I'll give you a great example, actually, instead of talking it through, because this story is going to resonate, I think, with everybody. So at my last in-house role, I helped them go from about 1 million to 20 million in just under 4 years. And when I came in, we were generating, I don't know, 2,000 leads a month. And for some companies, they're like, oh man, it's amazing. And we're paying like $2 and $3 per lead. And so some people are like, man, this is great. We're getting these many leads. Everyone's excited. Well, the issue is that when we looked under the hood, those leads that were basically coming in, they weren't high quality. About 85% of them were outside of our ICP. And so our ideal customer profile was home services. So like plumbing companies, HVAC companies, those types of companies, right? And so what we realized is that, hey, whenever we run ads, like anything that's coming from Meta, we're actually getting on the phone with these people and we're closing higher. And then we started doing some research on the Google ads because most of the budget was spent on Google. And so we were just looking at the research, like 85% of these are not really our ICP. These are like consumers. These are just people that are just, just kicking the tires and just kind of figuring stuff out. So what we started doing is we started shifting our budget. So we went from like, for every 100 leads we generated, 15 of them were ICP. In about 4 or 5 months or so, it was 95 out of 100.
That's good.
And
That
it was because we were looking at the audience, like we knew who we were targeting, and then we knew that the channel was not bringing that audience correctly, but we knew that this other channel, what was under resourced, was bringing the most ideal customer. So we would slowly kind of start moving budget over. Now our cost per lead went up, but all of a sudden what we did is now we started getting the right audience in. And then we had the system back end where we had emails and text messages going out to these leads automatically. That was creating just more of like hand raisers. And so what happened there is then our sales team didn't have to dial for all the leads and treat them all equally. What they did is they're like, oh, here's a person that's interested. I'm going to focus on the ones that are raising their hands. And then after that, I can focus on everything else. So that's kind of how I did it.
yeah.
And that's an example. Is like you just kind of have to diagnose it and really understand that there could be different levers, and there's not one way that's better than the other, but you got to diagnose it and you got to use data to do that.
No, that's so good, Javier. Now, maybe for me, career evangelist, yeah, I help people with their career. Now, if someone is out there listening to us and they also aspire to become a CMO,
Mhm.
what would you tell them? How should they approach this in terms of career planning?
So I love this question because my career to becoming a CMO was not linear.
Mm,
I got my education from the University of Colorado at Boulder, and my degree was in business management. And
okay.
so you're like, well, you're in business. I'm like, I didn't really use a lot of my tools that I learned from there. I didn't really use a lot of it. I got a lot of my learnings from sales. I came through sales. Like before I started my first company, I was the top sales rep. I was selling at a really high level, doing very well. And the thing is that if you're going to be going into the marketing world and even any career path, your path is not always going to be linear. It's not going to be like, well, I've got to go to journalism school, and then I've got to get my first internship at a blogging company, and then I got to get my next job here, and I need to be doing. It's never linear. And I look at it as like, if you're looking to get into marketing or even any career path, in my opinion, look at the journey and the steps to help you get to where you are. It doesn't have to be going the way that everyone else is doing it. Quite frankly, sometimes if you take, a little different direction, it's to your benefit. And so, me having a sales background has helped me immensely as a marketing leader. Why? Because I can actually talk to salespeople and have a true conversation because I know what motivates them: money, getting good quality contacts, working that pipeline correctly. So then I know how to get them to perform the way we can both win. And so that's kind of the approach. And so just understand that don't go linearly, and then be very open to how you get to your ultimate goal could be, a little different.
So thank you for explaining that, and I like the way you broke it down. Earlier on, I think you took some risk to get to where you are today, especially when you said you bet on yourself, and that's very important. Now, when we talk about risk, how should professionals think about career risk, especially during uncertain period?
Oh, that's a hard one. Uh, well, I will say, when I took my first risk, starting my first business, I was young. I was like, this was my mentality. I was 27 years old. I was like, okay, if
Yeah,
I,
easier
if I,
then.
it's easier.
Yeah.
I didn't have a wife. I didn't have
Yeah.
kids. I
Yes.
had a dog, and so the risk was different. Today my risk is different now. Like, I've got a wife now. I've got two kids. I've got a home. Like, it's a little different, but you really got to measure, like, what are you willing to gamble on, if you will. And so when I was 27, I was like, I've got my 30s to make up if I fail. And so I was like, I'm gonna bet on myself. But the biggest thing is that you almost want to kind of build things in parallel. So if you're going to be making a jump into a new industry, or if you want to start your own company for the first time, I don't necessarily think the right move is to literally quit your job and start your own company. Some people, it might be just how the cards just get laid, and you just got to play those cards, and that's fine. But for others, it's really like building what you want to do and seeing how you can get this to where it becomes a supplemental income or a supplemental opportunity, and see how you can scale it at your less resourced time, because that is where you're going to start kind of offsetting the risk. And then at the end of the day, like, if you're very system oriented and you are very disciplined and you know how to, like, take coaching and you're very just self-aware, bet on yourself.
That's
I will always say that, like, bet on yourself, because if you're not disciplined and you're not self-aware and you don't have these things, then don't do it, because you're going to fail quickly. Getting pushed into the deep end sometimes doesn't always work unless like, all right, this is what I'm going to do here. This is what I'm going to do here. This is what I'm going to do here.
Oh, that's so good. Now, I want to also learn more about you betting on yourself. You launched
Okay.
a business during the Great Recession.
Mm-hmm.
I remember what I was doing at that time, by the way. I knew what was going on in the country at that time. I knew how companies were laying off. I knew about all the panics in the market, stock market sell-off. Everything was quite dark. So, what lesson did you learn from that period, or that teach you about starting your business and growing your business? Can you talk through that for us?
Yeah, I mean, I would say it's a couple of things. One of them is I have a faith, in Jesus, and that is a big piece of what has made me successful. So I leaned into that. I leaned into my faith, and maybe you may or may not have that faith, and that's okay. But I think it's important to find something that you can lean into that gives you the faith to kind of keep forward, because there are going to be moments where you feel like you're walking alone, you know and that is the journey of an entrepreneur, is that you are going to be walking alone, and that's okay. The other part that was, that helped me as well too, is I took the time to get coaching. I took the time to actually learn from other people. So I didn't always spend, because at the time I didn't have a ton of money. So I was spending where I could to get coaching in the right places. And if I wasn't getting coaching, I was learning, whether it was reading books, whether it was reading blogs, whether it was going to conferences, whatever it is. But I was learning as much as I could. And so those two things, in my opinion, has helped me kind of like lay the foundation of that. And that has changed my life, even today. I think one year, I think it was about 2 or 3 years ago, I think I read like 40 books. And most of the books is audiobooks for me because that's just how I learn.
Yeah.
But where I'm coming from with this is that I was always in a learning mode. And I'm always, I can take a little bit of information from here and I can apply that to like what my strategies and my goals are.
That's good. You talked about moments. A few moments ago, you said there will be moments where you feel like you are walking alone.
Mhm.
So with that, I want to learn or hear from you. What's the most painful leadership lesson that you've learned in your career?
Oh gosh, that's a good one. Um, Most painful leadership lesson. You know what?
Or
Probably
the most
selling.
challenging moment from your career, something that's really
Yeah.
challenged you.
I would say it was probably selling my business.
Ah,
Um, because, and I'll give you the backstory really quick. I came up through the martial arts world. I've been training in the martial arts for almost 30 years. I competed professionally. I won a world title. I was very good at the martial arts. Um, I was so committed to running my business and starting my own company. I got the company name tattooed on my back. Like that was how committed I was into like, this is going to happen. And then, 2 years before I sold it, I was like, this is when I had a young family, and the reason I sold it is because I was an absentee dad and an absentee father, not by choice but by circumstances. And so I wanted to be more present to my family. That was very important to me, but I
yeah.
didn't want to do it in a sense of like just gonna just walk away from all of this. So I prayed a lot about that. So, anyways, that was the most challenging moment because it was what defined me for more than half of my life
Yeah.
was that journey. And then I had to reinvent myself. So like how do you go from what you've done for more than half of your life to now where I'm at today as a fractional CMO? Like there's a lot of reinvention in there. And so I would say that's probably the most challenging because I didn't know how to do it. And it was a path. It was just like, okay, I'm going to take this step, take the next step, but it was the right path and it was the right journey.
And I'm sure that must have been a very, very difficult decision. Like you rightly said, this is I won't say your baby, you said,
Yeah.
yeah, so you grew the business, you nurtured the business, and you had to let it go. So that must have been a very, very painful one. Now, finally, as we are wrapping it, Javier, I like to motivate my listeners, and you did it. You should be proud of yourself. Can you
Thank you.
tell them something to motivate them, whatever situation they may be facing today, whatever challenges they are dealing with? Tell them something about their career or their chosen path on how to keep moving forward.
Yeah. So, this is there's a lot of different things that really kind of hits me on this, but I really believe that, in today you should be building in public. And when I say by building in public is posting your wins and your losses, and maybe it's having a podcast like what you have, or maybe it's starting a YouTube channel, or maybe it's you on Facebook, whatever it is. But when you build in public, people start seeing you as you and they buy you. They don't buy your business, they don't buy your brand, they buy you. And so as you're doing this, the nice thing about this is that it's almost kind of like when we were kids and we were listening to music and you find like that underground band that all of a sudden like makes it and you started following them before they got big. That's the idea that you're trying to create, that feeling. And so as you're building in public, you're bringing people into your journey. And so when you're doing that, you create relationships. And it may be digital relationships, but it doesn't matter because they're following to see what you're going to do. And then from there, like they start getting motivated. Maybe they want to become a client down the road, or maybe they want to be a partner with you. whatever the case is, it doesn't matter. But when you build in public, that becomes your story. That becomes your moat. What makes you different from everybody else? Because my story, completely different from your story,
Yeah.
And so that's how I would approach it.
Thank you, Javier. I enjoy this conversation. You are telling us to build in public. That is, show how I work and keep showing up for ourselves. I appreciate your words of wisdom.
Thank
And
you.
I'm sure my listeners, they are going to find this episode very beneficial. Thank you for joining us on the Career Evangelist Podcast today. We enjoyed this conversation.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
All right.